welcome to this roundtable discussion today. We'll cover a lot of exciting topics. For one thing, we'll talk about how manufacturing industries are adopting new technologies and how that will benefit them. We'll also be talking about the digital asset management and the way that will evolve going forward. With me today, I'm really happy to have you, Chuck Gahun, the principal analyst of Forrester, covering areas of DAM, PIM, CMS, and more.
Yep.
So warmly welcome to you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to the conversation.
And welcome to Copenhagen.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
And also warm welcome to you, Claus Thorsgaard, the CEO of Luxion, the industry leading company for digital rendering. So warmly welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Yeah. So let's start off the conversation maybe to look into, the broader aspects of manufacturing companies and the trends that are impacting them. So do you want to take a comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, Forrester's Future of Manufacturing report looks at 4 major trends that are going to shape industries and manufacturing in general. Demise of globalization is certainly in place. Through the pandemic, we saw less reliance on singular countries like United States or China for manufacturing needs and really spreading that out globally a lot more. Sustainability is a big conversation, as you both know. And then we're really looking at digital technologies and embedding digital into things like IoT. We've seen those trends moving for a while. The 4th one, which is very interesting, especially to this conversation, has to do with automation and thinking about the fusion between hardware, software, and also just people and process and how that works in manufacturing as a whole. And so, digital asset management systems, product information management systems, product lifecycle management systems, these are the core technologies that are fusing what happens from product ideation all the way down to product go-to-market and where consumers are actually experiencing these products. And there is a tremendous opportunity that is starting to be shaped in market for manufacturers now to do 2 things. One, pull some of that material from upstream and bring it into the consumer experience, while there are consumer trends that are naturally also pulling and asking for more and more and more. So if you think about when we shop for a product online, just think about the fidelity that you're looking for in product images and assets for any product you purchase, right? So the interesting part about this is that manufacturers, through the manufacturing process, have so much of that imagery and assets at their disposal. Bringing that into market is, I think, the next frontier that will really bring the manufacturing processes together. And one of the products that is at the core, the central piece of that, is digital asset management. So those are some of the thoughts that come to mind.
Yeah, and it's exciting because the way that I see it is that when the product is created from, ideation, it kind of materializes. But at the same side, there is, digital content that represents that new product from CAD drawings and other stuff. That's really a digital twin. Right. And I know that's a concept that you work with your customers in terms of leveraging, that content.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've seen is that there's an increasing demand for product visualization. I mean, you obviously have all the information in the CAD file, but in order to really make decisions, both design decisions, but ultimately sort of also bring the information onto manufacturing, you want to be able to see the product and visualize it and potentially both through AR and VR. And what we're seeing is that customers want to visualize early and they want to visualize often so that they can sort of make decisions and bring efficiencies to the whole process. And that's where KeyShot has some qualities that customers are appreciating.
Yeah. So can you give an example of, how does customers leverage, that digital twin, that content is already available in manufacturing companies?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like for instance, one of our big customers, Google, they have had a tendency to use photography for a lot of things, but they are realizing that the lead time is is long, because it can sometimes take days or weeks to capture sort of the right images for the marketing and e-commerce use. But if you have like a virtual studio with the digital asset containing all of the information of the CAD file, I mean, you can expand the asset, you can obviously spin it around, you can put it together, and you can apply the optimal lighting, and that means that you can shorten that process to less than a day, save time and money.
Yeah, so it seems like there is, assets available in the organization for creating what you talked about, new exciting experiences and differentiated, product experience, and there is a high demand for that from a marketeer's point of view. So, isn't that leveraged today, or
No.
What is your point of view and experience on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, and you said so many things that I wanted to just point out. You brought up AR, VR, and we you touched a little bit on 3D assets and assemblies and renderings through CAD drawings. There is so much in market that is in demand from consumers. Our data from our April 2023 Pulse survey showing that consumer trends are looking at 71% in the US and 69% of consumers in the UK are the first thing they're looking for is deeper, richer fidelity in product images and assets before they make a product decision. So if you think about how demand is manifesting in market, I think we are right now only thinking about these 2D experiences on the digital websites and mobile devices and such. But pretty soon, whether it's the metaverse, whether it is AR, VR, Apple's Vision Pro, as the hardware and software becomes more predictable, prominent, cheaper to use in market, we're going to see the rise of what Forrester calls immersive experiences. And as this starts to come about, you're going to start seeing virtual environments where consumers are wanting to experience these products through 3D renders. And I'm giving you a simplistic example where you're thinking of a retailer or a distributor, but think about a little bit more complex examples of large assemblies that have interconnected parts. Maybe a B2B purchase at scale, and they want to understand how a specific product interlocks with a few others. So I think there's still a long road to travel around 3D, AR, VR, and there's a lot of opportunity in market it's sort of the next frontier that is about to unfold. And it's all directly connected to manufacturing and bringing product to market, really. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And I think you bring up the point of, creating that unique experience, and also especially for complex products that, photography cannot really capture the inner components of product and kind of
exactly
show how that works. We also see with some of our customers, if a Signify company that does lighting, for architects that needs to pull in their products into creating new buildings and stuff like that. So what they experience is that is not only to create the experience from their own product, but it's also downstream to serve that content for their customers, the architects, to create new experience for their customers. So it kind of all blends together, and these 3D models that goes into that needs to be served and provided in an efficient way. I don't see a lot of DAM technology at place in that. So is that something new, or is that something that customers are already doing? How does you view that?
Candidly, there's not. I think digital asset management, while it's a foundational technology for enterprises now, it's been around long enough, primarily serving digital experiences as its master. Some digital assets are starting to go into the enterprise level for more enterprise content as well. However, the idea of taking a digital asset management piece of software and pulling it further upstream into the manufacturing process is something that's just, I think, starting to manifest. And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to make DAM be that central repository that drives not just digital experience assets, but holds product imagery and assets to, as you are saying, to serve, a whole host of masters. I think there's a lot to do with that in market still.
So that kind of marriage between, the ideation and the product manufacturing and the experience side, I think you have a point on that, and I think that was some of the underlying thoughts on the acquisition of DigiSuite. So can you share a little bit?
I mean, the reason we are so excited about sort of the acquisition and the merger between DigiSuite and Loxion is that we are seeing customers sort of asking for a way of, let's say, enabling collaboration across the entire value chain. And DigiSuite has the ability to easily help customers produce photorealistic images. But then you have all these thousands and thousands of images, and how do you ensure that you kind of repurpose and collaborate efficiently around those images across the value chain? If you don't have something like a DAM, then you use Google Drive or you use a Dropbox, or you need to kind of move these assets from one department to the other. And, there's the versioning around it. There's the security layer. It's just very inefficient. So by combining DigiSuite and Loxion, all of a sudden you have a product visualization collaboration platform that can really speed up the process and be hugely cost-saving measure for customers.
Yeah. So it seems like, DAM has been adopted a lot by marketing department for the, content creation. But it's primarily, as far as I've seen it, been kind of internal in marketing and then sharing with, partners and external. But there hasn't really been, a connection to the design teams, to the product design teams, and to the vast amount of assets in 3D models and CAD models that is, just sitting there. So this marriage, what does that bring to manufacturers if you can really, get that to flow? What would that mean for a modern manufacturer?
I think it adds a tremendous amount of value. There's certainly organizational silos that exist, right? So you've got product teams that are engineering, ideating, creating, engineering the product. And then you have marketing teams that are taking that and bringing it downstream. So, the marriage of those two, fusing the two products that you're suggesting together through the acquisition, keeping DAM as a central repository, now starts to break down silos. I think we're quickly going to move into a world where, if you think about a product designer who's, creating a product, you can look at any of the leading companies in market, Apple, Google. Their job is to move more product at the end of the day. They want their product to sell. And what's ironic about this whole story is that's exactly what the marketing team wants as well. So as you start seeing technology fuse these capabilities together, you're naturally going to see these teams come together, collaborate to bring some of that collateral from the product design process into the hands of consumers. Meanwhile, the consumer experience through hardware and software is getting enriched as well. And so you start to see this perfect storm come about where the opportunity to break down silos, bring teams together, put technology and people and process at the center of it, will actually enable firms, through what our research is showing in the future of manufacturing, will actually help industry move along faster and better, and probably with a lot more efficiency and accuracy. One of the things you brought up earlier that's I just wanted to mention as an aside is you talked about image creation as part of the process. And, some of the research that we've just recently done, that I just recently completed around generative AI, which is a hot topic in market. Yeah. There's such a focus on image creation, but when you really peel the onion back, you start to see that generative AI is not very good at creating brand-specific image assets. It's very good at taking a brand asset and putting it in a different setting.
Sure.
And what's interesting about your acquisition and what we're talking about today is the opportunity to actually now go the other way and bring the real assets that created the product further downstream. If you think about what it's doing, is it's actually creating more experience in the large language model to design and create the right asset to then put into different settings. So I think this actually has an opportunity to power generative AI correctly as the years go on, but also at the same time give brands an opportunity to bring the right collateral to market rather than just creating assets to market them a specific way. We haven't even touched on the frontier of generative AI, but when you brought up image creation, I had to say something about it.
That's an interesting thought. So who do you think, are there certain verticals or certain types of companies that will be sort of in the forefront of that transition?
In the transition towards?
In the transition to sort of actually utilizing the assets, downstream and upstream, and sort of the generative AI. I think you position that well, and there's a certain use case for that, but it's not necessarily going to transform everything.
Yeah, I mean, certainly product companies, there are different verticals that I think are moving at different paces in market. I think it's a little bit hard to necessarily call out which one. I can manufacturing, and there's so many different types of manufacturing, but I can very easily see a need in market for these products and the product assets to be driven harder and faster. And what I mean by that is, if you think about sort of the more simplistic scenarios and then the more complicated scenarios. So the simplistic scenarios are, if you think about, retailers or distributors selling nuts and bolts versus a retailer selling clothing. I think we can think about how product information manifests there. But if you're actually talking about, to your question, which verticals is this going to help accelerate, think about the more complex scenarios of where there is a electrical engineer, as an example, and he or she is trying to create a finished good, a finished electrical component. They are sourcing multiple parts from different manufacturers. And think about the level of fidelity that they're looking for from those electrical components when they're thinking about things like heat dissipation and such. They're looking for a very granular level of fidelity before they make a decision, right? As you start to empower them more and more through the technologies like you are bringing to bear to market, there's an opportunity to touch so many different verticals and move them faster and create better finished goods that then go further in the process, still using the same technology, but going to market into the hands of consumers through distributors or retailers. So if you start coming upstream in the storyline and you go from B2C back up to B2B, and you start to really think about how these goods are created, I think there is a tremendous amount of opportunity.
Yeah. Interesting. So I think I want to touch on another topic as well in this regard, because my experience working with our customers, we could take Nikon, which makes, really nice cameras. Their marketing department always feels that when they launch new product in the innovation cycle, they're at the later stages of it, and they're always squeezed from time and have to, take all the imagery and photography and get it launched and ready for a campaign. So I'm imagining if that creation is, done based on, CAD drawings and other stuff, they may actually get a head start. They may have more time to launch it or be ready at an earlier time, and that may change, the way that they operate. So I think is that an opportunity for marketing departments to,
Massive. But I would even take it a step further, which is that the marketing team should be collaborating with the product design team up front. And maybe collaborate is a strong word. Perhaps they're having conversations and understanding how the product design team is intending for the product to be used. So marketing becomes a lot less about actually taking the product to market. Of course, that is the the prime function, but it becomes more about understanding the product so that the ways that they can bring it to market and how that actually manifests in market is realized not only by the marketing teams. It's not crunched for time, as you're suggesting. It's actually ideated along with the product design process, which would bring the product to market in a completely different way, because there's less translation that needs to occur. You see, it's a lot more about bringing the product to life correctly in market, which is what, coincidentally, the product designers would want. It's just that many organizations, as you were suggesting, operate in this siloed fashion.
Right.
And I also think that it's got a little bit to do with the fact that we haven't really had technology that ties it together. Technology that is adept at being deep in CAD drawings and 3D models, and also adept on the digital asset side for digital experiences. That's just not something we have really invested a lot in, from the digital side of things.
Right, but now obviously the technology is here, and with the innovation that we are going to continue to do, I think the technology definitely will be available. So do you think that there will be new roles created in organizations? I mean, obviously now you have functional heads, and you talk about the silos, but in order to enable efficient collaboration, somebody needs to drive that, or somebody needs to own that. And do you think we will see new roles emerge?
100%. The role that's coming to mind as you're saying all of this, and as we're having these conversations, is I don't have necessarily the title of it naturally, but it's something around product experience. And that experience manifests physically, digitally, 3D, AR spaces, but it uses product information, drawings, imagery, assets from the product ideation phase and brings that to life in market. And I think as some of these, marketing and product teams come together, as some of the technology starts to come together to drive them, titles such as product experience leads would come about in their own way in verticals. I think that will be very powerful.
So it seems, Klaus, that this vision of the acquisition between of DigiSuite kind of opens up a new avenue for the way that marketeers and manufacturers create content. Can you maybe share a little bit more about the vision of how you imagine that future for those companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we see a lot of use cases, and we are having dialogue with customers already that are sort of asking us to explain more about what it can do. And I think it's all the way from some embedding certain 3D technology in the DAM so that the customers can have like a 3D spin on some of the assets, to really building a robust product visualization collaboration platform where you can store all the assets and facilitate the collaboration as I mentioned. So I think we have certain offerings today we can bring to market relatively quickly, and then working with our customers, obviously we will extend that and invest even more in innovation around that.
Seems like there is an exciting future ahead there.
I mean, obviously this is new as of this week. We closed the transaction Monday, so it's all new. But I think we are all excited, and sort of the feedback from customers that we have received, both DigiSuite customers and KeyShot customers, is that there's a demand, and there's really no one out there that is filling that demand. So we need to operate fast and make this happen.
Yeah, I think from our side, I think we often see any industry commoditize over time, and I think there is a lot of DAM providers out there for sure. So it can be difficult for customers to make their pick. We've also seen a lot of acquisition in the DAM space over the last years from marketing operations or CMS spaces buying up, acquiring in the DAM space. So this being maybe a different thing or a different marriage, would you agree that that's a different pathway, and do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, To your point, I think, digital asset management systems, while they're foundational to enterprise technology now, there's certainly quite a few of them in market. So how does a leader, a technology or marketing leader make that decision? I think having a digital asset management system that's specialized in a vertical, the trajectory that you are projecting is certainly, helps differentiate the product. More importantly, I think it's starting to bring value into sort of a space where that it desperately needs that level of value. When I was listening to what you were saying, I certainly naturally think about business cases, right? How do you make this investment happen? And I think the business case becomes pretty simple when you start looking at how much it costs for photography product assets, right? So, I mean, even if you were to just take a nugget of that value that an organization is spending, right, and add it back through this technology, which coincidentally is technology that they probably already need in-house for digital experience anyway, right? But now it's serving even more masters. I think the case to transition to a DAM in manufacturing that does it end to end becomes pretty straightforward.
Right. Yeah, and to that end, I mean, some of our customers say they're paying $100,000 per day for a photography studio and a photography shoot. So obviously lots of savings there, but also some manufacturers produce products that are more or less impossible to put into a studio. Let's say huge windmill turbines, or you can't photograph these products in real life, but of course if you have a digital image in a virtual studio with all the cameras you want and the right lighting, that would also ensure that shades and lights and everything is sort of transmitted completely photorealistic, then you can do whatever you want, and it's super cheap.
And it's accurate.
Right?
That's the thing. As we're moving into this world of generative AI, we have to be very cognizant about that, in that enterprises want to bring their brand assets to market. I've had conversations with our leaders about what happens to enterprise assets when machines can create those assets. Well, I think what's very unique about the path you're forging is you're actually trying to bring accuracy to market.
Yep.
Which matters a lot to brand leaders. And I know that firsthand because of the amount of inquiries that Forrester receives from brand leaders talking about, how do I ensure my assets remain, the integrity of my assets remains.
Yeah. And another thing we haven't talked about, but some companies, they have thousands and thousands of SKUs, right? I mean, you can't make a photograph of all of the different bits and pieces. It's just not viable. But nevertheless, if it's on their e-commerce store, I mean, you still want to display even the different parts in a photorealistic way, and the only way to do that is to use the rendering technology.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah, and that's what we experience with some of our customers is, Watch Water is in heating and plumbing. They have a lot of different variants and, ending of pipes and stuff like that. They can't cover that with photography. So one of their challenges is that, when you buy B2B, even B2B, if what is on the, order sheet or order confirmation is not accurate, then it leads to, support issues. It leads to, eroding of trust. So is this also a trust issue? Is it, having that accurate representation of product? And maybe, digital rendering can actually provide more trust than photography. Is that the case?
100%. I think trust is a very important factor, especially when it comes to generative AI and creating the rendering, but more importantly, bringing the right product information to market. As you were talking, one of the other thoughts that was coming to mind that's very related, but very important, going back to an earlier question you had around what is the role of marketing overall, as opposed to product leads and product designers. What's interesting here is if marketing can understand product information as associated with the ideation process correctly, then marketing's role becomes a lot less about the accuracy and bringing it to market, because that becomes a natural function of technology such as yours. What becomes much more interesting is marketing's ability to take the product and implement it across different use cases. And so when you were talking about the various pipes and such, and the complex assemblies, think about the various uses and use cases for that in market. And that's where marketing investment needs to go in communicating the go-to-market correctly for a manufactured good and how it can be used in market so that consumers that are actually purchasing it can use the application of it correctly. See, and I think that's where marketing then is less about bringing up one product to market. It's a lot more about having marketing explain the use of that product in market so that consumers can see how it applies to their lives. And that's where I think there's a lot more value to be gained.
Yeah, it almost feels like you're explaining that, the product moves through downstream supply chains, to distributors, to people that add value, combine it with other things, and there is a digital model of that needs to follow in the same path, really, for them to create, their marketing experience and product experience to their customers. So it's also about not customers, but customer's customer. Is that what you're saying as well?
Exactly. And as going back to an earlier point I made, if you think about the simplistic scenario is retailers and distributors, but if you go further upstream and you think about creating the product and creating the finished good and where you are sourcing all of those from, that becomes a much more interesting use case scenario for how the marketing teams of those B2B organizations need to market the product.
Yeah. So I want to take back to this, substitution of photography as well, because I think there is a lot of, 3D models. There's demand for these immersive experience, but there's also a lot of photography or 2D going on. But 2D can obviously be created from a 3D model. So would you say, Klaus, that a lot of these manufacturers have large studios? They have photographers. There is a lot of investments. There is a lot of production that goes into that. Are you challenging that status quo and offering a new path?
No, that's a good point, Kim. And I think there's some apprehension in certain companies because of you're trying to protect also your power in an organization. And photography, obviously for years and years have been used to create these images that is used downstream in the marketing side, but I think it's becoming apparent that it's not efficient and it's not cheap, and we think that it will erode and ultimately disappear. And not tomorrow, but certainly the technology is there to make it happen. Why do you need to produce physical samples and make photos if you can essentially just make the same photos in a virtual studio?
So I think an agenda we haven't touched a lot on is sustainability. I know that that's important for many of us and for manufacturers as well. Is trying to find way to decrease the carbon footprint and to make things more sustainable. Right. So is this also offering an opportunity for organizations to create assets and make that in a more sustainable way?
Yeah, absolutely. Sustainability, especially in the EU, is going to become a topic of conversation very quickly, so much so that we're seeing the potential rise of product information management as being cemented in enterprises that bring product to market. From the sustainability perspective, from the circular notion of having products in sort of a sustainable way be created and then retired or replaced and repaired in a way that they're continuously used. And as you start thinking about this sort of sustainable cycle, having the product assets that accompany that journey end to end in the circular motion that I'm describing are extremely critical to making some of those choices and decisions along the way. What are you guys seeing around sustainability in the EU, and what are the trends you're observing?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a big topic without a doubt, and from a regulatory perspective, but also in general, and I think especially the younger generation, they really do not like waste, and if you have to produce prototypes and physical samples that eventually just go to the landfill because there's no use of it, post sort of the photography and products are brought to market, then it is really a waste, right? So So with the digital images, there's really no reason at all to produce physical prototypes. It's just going away.
Yeah.
So if this marriage has the potential to increase the fidelity, the customer experience, build more trust and accuracy, build content with less, more efficiency, and with less carbon footprint and more sustainability, what are we waiting for?
Well, we are obviously not waiting. We had the integration kickoff yesterday, and we are already talking to customers. So I think this is a big opportunity to make a very significant impact in the industry. So I know we're both very excited about it, and so is our customers.
Excellent. Any final thoughts from you, Chuck?
No, I mean, I think, your story about connecting this technology end to end for the manufacturing supply chain is a very compelling argument. And it's definitely something that is very much needed in market to help empower industry as a whole. So yeah, congratulations.
Well, thank you so much.
Look forward to hearing more about the product.
It's been such an insightful conversation. I'm so grateful that both of you would join me here in Copenhagen today. And I think we are, looking into this new avenue, and we hope that you'll, be part of that, Chuck, and help us, understand what industries, what parts of manufacturing companies would have the most impact and benefit on this. So we are excited to continue the conversation. And thank you very much, Klaus, for joining this. And we look forward to the joint endeavor. And any final thoughts from you?
No, I'm equally excited, and also thank you, Chuck, for sharing your insights about the trends and also sort of the endeavor that we've embarked on too. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.